Welcome to a review of Egypt. 4 cities, 14 nights, one incredible journey. There were 4 of us, myself, my wife, and our friends. And in this video, we'll be sharing with you the most honest opinion about this country. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Are you ready? Let's go. One more thing before we start, hit that subscribe button to see my other videos from Egypt and from around the world.
Alright, as we cruise on this beautiful river of Nile, we want to share some of the experiences we had so far in Egypt, so that if you're traveling to Egypt, you know what to expect.
Safety. Let's talk about safety in Egypt.
Egypt has been very safe for us. We've been in Cairo, we've been in Aswan, and I think we never felt unsafe.
Yes, we never felt unsafe
Yeah.
or threatened, and we practically walked at night,
Yeah,
at 11 p.m. at night,
yeah,
in crowded streets, and been using tuk-tuk with a single driver,
yes.
driving at night, stopping at various points. Never felt threatened. People generally don't put you at that spot where you feel threatened.
Yeah, so very, very safe.
I want to add to that a couple of things. First, water. Do not drink tap water because for obvious reasons you don't want to get sick. And also do not buy bottled water from the streets. There were stories where people would buy bottled water and still get sick because what they do is they get a bottle, they fill it up with tap water and they would sell it. So buy it from stores. And another thing about Egypt is crossing the streets. You have to be assertive, you have to be decisive, otherwise you will never cross the street. One thing that we were not expecting to see in Egypt is to see poverty, a lot of poverty. I'm talking about kids, adults, older people. We helped them whenever we could, but it was hard to watch. Transportation. When you are in Egypt, you're going to use airplanes, you're going to use trains, taxis, tuk-tuks, horse carriages, and even camels. Transportation is very cheap, especially when it comes to taxis, tuk-tuk. We actually hired a taxi driver to drive us from city to city.
On one occasion, we took a tuk-tuk to drive from point A to point B. The guy said he knows where he's going, but on the way to our final destination, he had to stop multiple times, literally asking people, local people, how to get to our hotel. In our case, we eventually got lost. We got off the tuk-tuk, and you guys finally made your way to the hotel, but it took much longer. So keep that in mind. So leave a lot of time for yourself when you travel from point A to point B, especially if you're taking more kind of private type of transportation.
When the driver doesn't speak English, that even complicates the communication even more. Because they don't want to lose the customer, they're going to
say yes.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
they're going to say yes, and you have faith, and all of a sudden you discover they don't actually know where they're going. So
Yeah,
it's an
it is. Yeah, it's part of the
for sure.
experience. If they say yes,
Sure. That doesn't
probably that doesn't mean that they understand. Okay, so keep that in mind.
I must warn you though, be prepared for chaos wherever you go.
Be open-minded, because so many things here would be so foreign to some of you who are coming from North America. At one point, our taxi driver was driving against the traffic. I have filmed that, so that was hilarious. We didn't feel unsafe, but that was quite unbelievable scene. We were going against the traffic.
I have fear for the chaotic driving, but here in Egypt overall, and specifically in Cairo, where it was completely wild, sometimes going against the direct, but I haven't felt unsafe. That's miraculously because they're such good drivers.
The next thing is currency exchange, and let me tell you something, I haven't seen anything like that in the world. So me and my friend are going to the bank to exchange our Canadian dollars, our US dollars to local Egyptian pounds, and the teller tells us to use this machine. You insert your Canadian or US dollars and it will spit out the local currency. And as we were planning to do that, the same teller approached us and very carefully tells us that he can provide us a better rate. First we were confused, but he said, just come with me. So we went with him. He took us around the building, literally around the corner, and he pulled out a stack of cash. I filmed it because otherwise you guys wouldn't believe me. He pulled out a stack of cash and we did exchange right there. So here's a video of my friend and that bank guy exchanging currency. Only in Egypt.
One thing that I felt is that there's lack of information here. You have to ask 3 or 4 times before you get to your answers, but sometimes you won't even get the answer. For example, yesterday I was trying to get my passports back from the office here, and I approached one guy. He said your passports will be ready tomorrow. Another guy said that it will be ready tonight, and yet another guy behind the counter said I can give it to you right now.
Yeah, I would agree with communication gap, and I think that explains pretty much like all the things that we've encountered here in terms of not being on time, for example,
Yes.
saying that we're coming for you at 9, showing up at 11, then communicating very inconsistently, communicating that they may be delay 5 minutes, then you end up being picked up at 11:30. So there's a big gap, huge chunk of time missing.
Us living in North America, we're kind of used to being certain schedules, sticking to the timelines. But if you're here, forget about that. Just leave, go with the flow, expect delays, expect uncertainties. If someone tells you yes, if you ask someone something, they might tell you yes, but then nothing happens, right? Again, I don't think it's attitude, it's just sometimes lack of understanding. Obviously, English is not a common practice here. So, I would say lower your expectations when you come to
Yes.
Egypt from that perspective.
It was a bit of a culture shock for us, in terms of lowering your expectations, probably a good way. People just taking it easy, sometimes not getting back to you, sometimes giving you incorrect answers, not intentionally misleading you, but just it's just I guess lost in translation here.
Dress code in Egypt. Keep in mind that this is a Muslim country, so in Egypt, ladies are supposed to cover the legs, the shoulders, and for men, there's also kind of a dress code. We barely see men in shorts, especially local people. You would not see local people in shorts. But as you go outside of Cairo, especially on the cruise or in the Red Sea resorts, the dress code gets much more open. So you can wear shorts, skirts, but within the city, within the main attractions, especially in Cairo, you're expected to dress very conservatively. Alright, and the most important thing in Egypt, sightseeing. What to see in Egypt? Obviously a lot of history. And even though the pyramids are the most visited place in Egypt for obvious reasons, the Great Pyramid of Giza, it was amazing, it was beautiful. But what impressed me in Egypt, can you guess what that is? It was absolutely spectacular. Temples. Oh my God. Temples after temples after temples. As we were cruising along the Nile River, we would make stops every day. We would visit one temple in the morning, one in the afternoon. Absolutely beautiful. Mind-blowing. Haven't seen anything like that anywhere else in the world. Stunning.
Cairo, one of the I think the 6th largest city in the world, 30 plus million population, incredible. Almost like population of our country, of Canada, in one city. Unbelievable. One thing you will notice when you come to Cairo, is that lots of buildings, it looks like they're not finished. And that was the first question we asked of our guide. And we're glad that we asked, because otherwise, like, we would be wondering. So basically, what's happening is when they build the buildings, they build it, but they don't necessarily finish it. Sometimes, not sometimes, pretty much most of the building in Cairo, it feels like they're not finished. Either they're missing a couple of floors because you can see that construction is still happening, but people already live inside. From outside, the buildings are not finished. They're running out of money, and that becomes almost a new standard. You know, they don't necessarily care about how a building looks from outside, but they pay more attention how it looks inside. I think it's also kind of unique feature of Cairo. I personally haven't seen it anywhere else in that scale.
Hotels, obviously a very important part of any trip where you stay. We stayed in different hotels in different cities, and here's what was our experience.
Obviously, again, different standards, right? So maybe it's not as clean as you might used to when traveling through North America, for example, or even in Europe. But again, this is part of the culture, part of the experience. Keep in mind that, you know, the maintenance of the facility may not be happening at the level that it should be happening. So therefore, it may be not as clean as we used to in some other parts of the world. So yeah, overall, I would say, yeah, lower your expectations, and just go with the flow.
Yeah. And generally, they try to be responsive to various requests, but our encounter at the hotel, sometimes you ask something from the reception, and then
they disappear.
Okay.
They disappear.
Yeah. Okay, and then nothing else happens afterwards. So you wait for, like, let's say, a towel or an extra blanket or pillow or whatever the case may be. So then you have to almost go and get it yourself, type of thing, or remind them. So I don't know. Maybe there's the communication.
I don't think it's attitude. It's more like type of, you know, the customer service again, right? It's not at the level where we normally see it in some of the other countries.
Yeah. Sure.
People of Egypt. They want to talk to you, they want to approach you, they're going to ask you questions, where are you from, and it's great. It's great to talk to local people, understand how they live, because if you're just moving from site to site, from museum to museum, you wouldn't really know what the real life is in Egypt unless you talk to local people.
Hi! Hi! Hello, guys!
We'll talk to people on the streets, we'll talk to people on the market, we'll talk to our host in Airbnb, and it was amazing. People are very kind, very open, and they're sincere. They would come to you and say, how can I help you to spend your money?
Wherever you go, whether it's tourist sites or you're walking, you know, along the street, you might be encountering a lot of vendors trying to sell you something. Like yesterday, we're going into temple and there are literally people surrounding you trying to sell you something. It might feel like unsafe at the beginning. They're literally all over you, right? But it's totally safe. They're just trying to make a little bit of money because obviously the income level here is pretty low. So they're just trying to make some living. So nothing wrong with that. Just, you know, if you don't want to buy anything, just say no, or just you can ignore. Just go through them.
Yeah, even though there are a lot of them, but they're not violent. They're not acting violently. They're not trying to even touch you or anything. They might appear to be so because sometimes they are like swarming you. So it feels like they're in groups.
When you're in Luxor, be prepared to be approached by lots of vendors. Right now we're walking on the main street. We have people approaching us left and right, offering their services: taxi, boat, horse, right? And one thing we found about Luxor, they're extremely persistent. Literally, they can escort you over 5 minutes. They would not go away. Even if you say you don't need it, they keep asking, they keep persisting. So keep that in mind. It's absolutely safe, but it might be annoying. Yeah, might be annoying here. Always negotiate, especially if you're buying something, bigger items. If they give you price, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, £1,000, you can always bring it down by 50, 40, 60%, depending what it is. So don't be afraid to negotiate. You can literally bring the price down to, half of that, and then eventually you will find the price that works for you. So negotiation is totally fine here, because they know that and they always give higher price.
And in fact, they actually enjoy it. I find
Yeah.
that they actually
They enjoy
like
the
having
process.
the process of bargaining. Yeah.
So another good experience we had here on multiple occasions is going into shops and letting vendors to showcase their product before you actually buy it. And I found that there was no pressure. Like in some of the other parts of the world, there was more pressure. But here in Egypt, that they showcase their products, whether it's tea or spices, and then there's no pressure. You can buy or you can choose not to buy. But I like this experience because, like, couple days ago, we tried different teas, but ended up buying some of them because we saw how they work. We saw the benefits. So that was good experience. When you're coming to Egypt, especially for the very first time, you want to try different parts of Egypt. Definitely Cairo. You want to spend a few days in Cairo, and then Nile cruise, which is what we're doing right now. This is a must-have experience because Nile is a life to the whole country. Without Nile, there's no life, there's no water, and therefore country would not exist. So taking a tour 3-4 nights on the cruise is an absolute must. And in between, you want to visit Aswan. That's where the cruise starts, and it's going to Luxor. You want to spend a couple of days in Aswan because it has a lot of history. We visited Nubian village. It was very interesting to see lots of colors, lots of opportunities to meet local people, interact with them. And right now we're going to Luxor, and on the way we're going to be stopping every day, visiting different temples. And after Luxor, we are going to Red Sea, another place I would recommend visiting because Red Sea is another tourist attraction here in Egypt. And then from there we're going back to Cairo. So I would say if you're coming to Egypt, at least 2 weeks, and that's just to scratch the surface of Egypt. The best time to come here is between November and March. This is when the weather is good. It's not hot. It's comfortable. Right now it's second part of March, and it's very comfortable. After April and during the summer, it gets uncomfortably hot. So this, I would say, the best time to visit Egypt. If you like the experience, whether it's taxi driving or being served at the restaurant, definitely tip them because they would appreciate that. I wouldn't say it's expected overall, but I think they expect. And another thing, whenever the local people do you a favor, whether it is taking a picture of you or helping you cross the street, or maybe like right now in the museum they open a door for us to come out fast, they will ask you for tips. Okay, so be prepared for that. If you don't tip, then don't go to those type of offers.
Yeah.
All right, food. Food is a very important part of any trip. Any country you go, you want to try the local food. Egypt didn't disappoint. I'm going to be honest, it wasn't the most yummy, most delicious food in the world, but I personally enjoyed it. Now, if you're a picky eater, if you are very selective about what you eat, you might get disappointed because there's a lot of food that is not typical for North American or for European style. But I personally enjoyed it. There's a variety and also very cheap, extremely cheap. I remember on our very first night in Egypt, 4 of us went for a dinner. It was a simple place, but still, we paid $10, about $10 for the 4 of us together. It was unbelievable. The food was yummy. The food was simple. Probably the best falafel I tried in my life. They do it with fava beans. That's why they're green inside. Oh my god, so good. Baba Ganoush was my favorite side in Egypt. Absolutely loved it. And of course meat. Lots of meat, including a pigeon meal.
Thank you for watching. This was a quick kind of guide into Egypt, what to expect. So hopefully this will help you to experience Egypt without being shocked. And we were shocked on a number of occasions. Overall, I would say Egypt a must-visit destination for any world traveler, just because it's such a unique combination of history and location. Thank you for watching, and dial into my channel to see more videos about Egypt. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.